Okay, we're live on Facebook and YouTube. Going to allow people time to come in. So we're going to put on our little intro. First show of the day, Waxela Sananda. I don't know this beloved sister, but I know she's out there doing the work. So we're going to get to know her in pure Cellogy style in front of a bunch of people. Oops. We're live on Facebook and YouTube. We have an echo in here. Going to allow people time to come in. So we're going to put on our little intro. Hello, Mary. Hello, Mary Soul Soto. Hello, Mary Lou, Aaron Lee. I'm in a giddy mood today. All right, let me put on the intro, and then we'll get this sister up here. All righty. We're gonna have 4 shows today, and the last one's my brother. He's gonna be on at 8 p.m. Eastern. Be right back. Infamous Gaia Man's in the house. Paul Castañeda. ¿Cómo está usted, mi hermano? Let's get together and do another show. All right, it's good to see you. Good to see everybody. Thank you all for your continued love and support and contributions. Allow us to keep doing this by the seat of our pants every day. But it's working. We're just a small mirror of what's going on in the universe, adding frequencies to an ever-expanding vibration. If these shows resonate with you, please share so that we can stay above these algorithms on Facebook and YouTube. We got a new friend coming in, Waxela Sananda. I'm going to pull her up now. And welcome to those in the Zoom room. Delia from outer space, our beloved sister, and Ellie Gore. All right, let's get her up here. There we go. Hello.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. How are you doing?
Good. It's Waxela Sananda.
Leave it to Todd to mispronounce everybody's name.
You are not the only one. It's very difficult to pronounce once you've seen it spelled, so you're forgiven.
What? How do you say it?
Waxela.
Waxela. So it's like the Spanish language.
Yes, it's Mayan.
Mayan. Yeah. Yeah, I got you. Yeah. So it's a pleasure to meet you. I don't know how we came together, but I'm glad that we did. And I read your bio. So I don't know if you've watched the show much. We don't ever read bios, and we just go into a conversation. It's all about real-time intel, your story, your energy, and whatever comes up, you know. But yeah, you've been around quite a bit. You do quite a few things, and yeah. So we're honored to have you on, and that you are sharing space with us today. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Todd. I'm really happy to be here. I love what you're doing. I'm amazed at your tenacity and how much you do this, how often, and how many people you bring to out in front of people. So thank you for your work.
Yes, I'm very. You're very welcome, and yeah, I appreciate you saying that. I think we're going to be. Let's see, what month is this? July? I can't even remember. Right. Yeah, we just went over 2,000 shows on this particular show.
Wow.
This particular show. It was in June. I don't have the exact number, but it's like probably 2010 by now. So yeah, and then you have some stuff that you do. You're doing you do something for the second year in a row. I think is what you were saying. It's
Yeah.
some type of
Yeah.
forum. What is that?
I do Alchemy of Ascension Summit. It is, an online show where I have speakers come. Mine is hosted over a period of a month. And I'll have, on my first one, I had 28 speakers. And then we niche into a certain conversation. So this coming one is about exploring our galactic origins and becoming multidimensional and all the different ways there are to go about that.
Right on. That sounds perfect. That's the type of conversation that needs to go mainstream. That's why we do what we're doing. Yeah, so that's very cool. I'm looking forward to finding out more about that. So, were you born this way, or did you have a succession of traumas that kicked you in the ass and made you get up out of the sleep and put you on
Yeah.
your mission?
I love it. Actually, I'm one who was born this way. And of course, I've had my traumatic experiences just like every other person on the planet. But I had my first memory of being visited by higher dimensional beings was somewhere between the age of 3 and 4. I actually had an experience I was having flashbacks because I didn't remember consciously everything that happened, but I saw this being. I'll just jump right in. This crazy cricket. It was a insectoid being.
An insectoid.
And I was getting flashes of it, in my 20s and, all throughout my life. I'm like, what was
So that was the first one? That was
the very first one. Yeah, I've had many since, but that was the only real insectoid that I had an experience with. He was more of a facilitator for what was going on. And there was a pod. I did QHHT therapy so I could go back, and I actually got to interview the insectoid guy so that
Did you really? So were you the client? You were the client on the QHHT session? Okay.
Yes.
What's crazy is
many.
I knew that's what you're talking about as soon as you started talking about the insectoid, because it was 2 years ago. I was in after we got married, Morgan went back to Australia, and I was in a hotel room in Houston, Texas, where I'm from, and a bunch of stuff started happening. The Arcturians came in, but before that happened, my grandmother, who was the first person or the first being that presented itself to me when I woke up 9 years ago. Anyway, she came with this other lady, and they were insectoids, and they were working on me. I called Morgan on the phone, like, hey, you got to help me out here. My grandmother just showed up, and she's an insectoid. She goes, what are they doing? Just surrender. And they were like working on my DNA and stuff and touching my legs. But yeah, she came as an insectoid, and she had come blue Kachina, Hopi. There was a couple of other, like a blue avian, but I just thought that was kind of strange. So now that you're going to be delving into this in your month-long event, the galactic origins and the significance of that's going to be interesting. So you had this encounter at 3 or 4 years old, and these things continue through your childhood? Did you tell your parents? Did they tell you they didn't exist? They tell you to go back to your room, nobody was in there, and all that stuff?
It was interesting because yes, they did continue. However, my conscious mind couldn't really handle the insectoid. So they would come as more like light beings instead of things like that would scare me. So I was left with the program, and that was a crazy experience. What I remembered, and then I was actually hooked into it was like a cocoon with a silver cord going out the window, and it was a charging station. So some pre-incarnational agreement, like you're going to do this. And then it was kind of behind the scenes all of these years. I just came out in front of people really a couple of years ago.
Oh, really?
But yeah, I was left with the program. Don't tell the adults, they won't understand. And it was so strong in me that even when I became an adult, I still wasn't talking about it much until I couldn't. And then I had another awakening, like, oh, I'm an adult now. I can start talking about these things.
Yeah. Yeah, most people that I don't ask that question all the time anymore, but most people will say that they had it when they woke up. I mean, when they came in, and then they got put away, and then eventually they couldn't turn the noise off, and they had to get up and get jiggy with it. But you only started doing this 2 years ago openly, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah, I've been doing this work. I traveled with a shaman in my early 20s for 3 years. So I was doing the work all along. I had another like big awakening experience in the Yucatan in my teens, when I was a teenager. And Mayan culture really activated me. I had soul codes there that I picked up, and then I really couldn't ignore what was happening. But then I traveled with a shaman. So I've been doing the work, and I've been doing one-on-one sessions. But it was about a couple years ago where I'm like, okay, I have to be in front of people now. Like it was really, literally, it felt like my guidance took me and pushed me in front of the camera. So I started doing videos. I started, doing the summit, interviews, things like that.
Very cool. Very cool. And so what was the information they gave you that first time and the other times? Is this your part of your soul tribe, would you say, or your star family, related to you? And what were they telling you all those years?
Well, that's a big subject. I mean, it's step by step. There have been a lot of things, but I have, way back then, it was more of like giving and receiving energy. So when I got to speak to that insectoid and I was in this cocoon, I'm like, what is going on? I was told this is connecting you to the Council of Light, to your specific, like the people that I would be reporting to, and you can draw and receive energy, and you share information on this connection. I got to a point in my path where I decided I didn't want that anymore. I decided in my sovereignty that I wanted to disconnect that, not because it wasn't good for me, but because I wanted to experience not having that. And so I did cut it off, but now I can kind of engage at will. Yeah. But I think it was very important for me at that time to have that connection. And I did feel very alone. I was raised in Iowa, Northwest Iowa, a small rural town.
Booming
and there was
metropolis.
Yeah, there was no one to share about my experiences anyway. So I really did feel alone. So part of my mission now is, community and connecting. And so bit by bit, I've received, lots of different bodies of work and information. Yeah. But most recently, I'm getting a lot of information about the community heart. I think this is really important for the new earth, and how empaths and sensitive people and the star seeds, we feel so much. And a lot of people turn off and then turn on at some point because it's too much when you're a kid. I'm one of those. I turned off my empathic abilities, turned it back on. But now in the feeling of everything, I've been seeing how this is the new earth. The emotional infrastructure of the new earth is put in place by empaths and sensitive people. They are the creators. We are the creators and the holders, the ones that hold space for that deeper, open, emotional experience of life, because we have to be able to feel everyone and everything in an ascended experience of life. Our hearts have to be connected. And when they are, we know when somebody's in pain or trauma, and we can send our support and love there. And when we're disconnected, it's too easy not to feel what other people are feeling. But in 3D, it's too hard to feel everybody's pain because there is so much pain and trauma. So I feel like the empaths and the sensitive people that are here, that are so traumatized by third dimensional experience, are really here for putting in place that fifth dimensional and higher infrastructure of the emotional heart of the new earth, so that we can all ascend into that and have that connected feeling. We don't feel lonely anymore. We know when our brother or sister needs us, and we can send support there through that heart.
Yeah. Yeah. I think there's been an evolution over I didn't come onto social media really actively. Like, I just posted from the street for the first couple of years. But when I came in, that would have been 2013, the latter part of 2013. And, I didn't even know what light workers were. I didn't know any of that stuff. really. I didn't know the term ascension, but I did notice as I started to, put my work out there, that there was a lot of groups that were empath support groups. And I never really considered myself an empath because I didn't know what the hell it was, but I obviously was, right? And so anyway, I watched it evolve. It was like the communities and the groups that were empath supportive were supporting empaths who were struggling with their gift. And so their gift to me was almost like a handicap, like a weakness. That's probably too harsh of a word, but my point is, it seems like that's kind of turned now. It seems like the empaths, you don't see those groups anymore. You don't see all these posts about empaths and narcissists and living with the narcissist and giving your power away and over giving and all that stuff. What you do see is you see these empaths that have turned this into a strength, who have bonded together and who are anchoring, like you said. And I think that's a very good point. I never heard anybody say that, but I think obviously the people that resonate with the labels, but I mean starseed or indigo or whatever, are typically empaths. I mean, every one of them. So that makes a lot of sense, because obviously they think about other people. I love what you said too about sovereignty. This is such a big deal. And I've done this before in my own right, and I just happened to do this a couple of days ago. But we are sovereign in all dimensions, all timelines, period. And so, a lot of times, all this information coming in, we tend to go, oh, what do I need to do? Where do I need to go? Aye, sir, 2 bags full. And we have the right. We're the ones here doing the work. These are aspects of ourselves that are communicating to us, but we are, soul. We are sovereign. And I love the fact that you said, hey, I'm going to do this and make this decision because I want to, because it's good for me, right? And I think maybe we need to be reminded of that sometimes, that, I tell them, hey, Archangel Michael, I'm down here doing the work, so I will have a say so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I love that you said that, because it needs to be said.
Yeah.
So you were taking in all this sacred wisdom and guidance and so on all these years. You come out a couple of years ago, and now you look as comfortable as as anyone in front of the camera. Was it a big adjustment for you? Was it, because there's a lot of people that are being, particularly women. There's a lot of women that they have that same thing that you said. They got those hands on their back and they're being pushed out there, and they're going, no, 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 no. And we've been very honored to have many of them on here for their first appearance. But was it difficult in respect to being able to take that step the first few times?
Yeah, I will say there was a moment where I remember grasping what was needed. I honestly can say I feel like I had a timeline shift. I shifted from the world of invisibility to the world where I'm doing, I'm not only hosting summits and interviews, but I'm on interviews, and where it was a moment of shifting my reality, truly. And in that, there's there's the push, like, this is what you're to do now. And I had asked for that guidance and I understood it, but then there's the receiving and the owning it. So my part in that was, if I choose, because we do have sovereignty, we do have choice. If I choose this, I'm really going to choose it. And the hard part was choosing to, yes, this is for me. I'm doing this. Everything after that has been, I'm not going to say smooth and simple all the time. I've had my bumps, but it does feel to me as if everything was always leading here anyway. Like, this is exactly where I was supposed to be. It feels very comfortable for me now to be doing this work online. I teach online. I have a membership. I do live calls. I do the summits and interviews. So it just feels like this was always what was supposed to be,
Yeah. You jumped in with both feet, and that's the whole thing, right? It's like, we're here, We know we're eternal. We know we can't be in pain or suffering in perpetuity. We know there's a reason, a rhyme to the reason. So let's go for it. I mean, it's just like, it's always right there in our face. And even with the ascension, everything's a potential program, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. We don't know. I mean, you've had plenty of communications in the ethers, as I have, and many people, and I can tell you straight up, I know I've run into ego, I've run into agenda. It doesn't make anything bad, but if there's a part of you or an aspect of you that specializes in such and such, they're going to be pushing such and such. You know what I mean? So we got to stay open. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of complicated, but it's the same thing every time. We're both the mission and the prize. And I think this is where we're getting to now. I want to ask you something. We've had a lot of energy practitioners come on this show. And I noticed at the end of last year, there seemed to be a shift. You talked about a timeline shift a minute ago in your own life. There seemed to be like a big shift in the fall. I don't know if when the line in the sand was it solstice, winter solstice? Was it January 1, January 11? I don't know. But there seemed to be a shift in the energy practitioner community, right? And it seemed to be one of, and I don't know what the old paradigm was. I would say it was probably more of a traditional healer client kind of thing. But then it started to shift, and it looked like it's more about personal empowerment. Mm. I saw many people came on the show and they said, I don't use the modalities that got me here, the processes. I'm not doing the same thing anymore. I'm changing rapidly. Everything just started to change. My clients are changing. My clients are all over the place. I've got an 85-year-old woman coming in telling me she had a Kundalini experience and she thinks she just found the sexual, fountain of youth or something, and so all this information seemed to come out and affected their traditional practices. Have you experienced any of that? Have you seen a change in your clientele over the past few months?
Yeah, definitely. I will say when I did the switch from being kind of behind the scenes one-on-one clients, I went to training online globally with a much larger reach. I'm not saying that's better. It's just what I was guided to do and what felt right to me. But I was doing psychic readings. I was doing one-on-one sessions, energy work, things like that. And really, I felt like it was almost like a light switch. Like my guidance, like no more of that. You're going to go, no more reading, no more psychic readings, no more of that. I haven't done any since, unless someone specifically, like a friend, will call me up and say, can you read this situation for me? Mm-hmm. I'll give feedback, but I'm not, and I was always very careful with my readings anyway, like to tell them this is my, perspective of what's going on. If you don't, take what resonates and throw away the rest. And, because I did want to make sure I wasn't, creating karma and putting something in their mind that wasn't right for them. But yeah, absolutely no more of that. I haven't done it's been about 1.5 to 2 years for me now since I've stopped that.
So there has been a change, a noticeable change.
Yes, absolutely. I went from one-on-one and couples to working with groups.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah.
And do you have a particular set of, like, if I come in for a session with you, how does that go? Do you have a particular modality?
One thing I still do is I have a Lucia light. I don't know if you've heard of that, but it's a hypnagogic light. It's called Lucia light.
Lucia light.
And it's a light that induces a shamanic-like journey, but it's substance-free. So there's no, drug involved. It's light-induced, flashing lights at various frequencies. And so you go on a shamanic journey under this light. And I'm, as a practitioner, holding space for that. And I can do groups of 1 to 6. So I still do reserve 1 or 2 days a week for that work. It used to be full time. I used to do that all the time. And
can you do that online?
No, that's
okay. You have to be.
I haven't done much of that during COVID for
I'm just
obvious reasons.
I was just trying. I've never heard of it. So, and what part of the country are you in?
I'm in Sarasota, Florida.
Oh my God, we just missed you. We were at
I
St.
saw
Pete
that you were
Beach
in
for
St. Pete. Yeah.
we were there from January till May 28th. God, that's crazy. Well, at least we know now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Next time.
yeah,
So,
so you have this Lucia light, right? And I'm just trying to understand what it is. So it starts blinking at you, right?
yeah.
And
Yeah.
then does the person just automatically go on to a shamanic trip, or do you guide them through it?
I do a guided induction, and then I guide them out, and then I hold space while they're under the light. And if someone wants to look it up, it's LUCIA, LuciaLightFlorida.com is, I have a website for that.
Okay.
But there are practitioners all over the world.
I'd never heard of it. It sounds
Yeah, it's
pretty
really
cool.
interesting. It's an interesting experience, and it's especially great for people who want to have a psychedelic journey or type of experience
So
with.
it is like
It
psychedelic?
is. Very much so.
How the
It's
hell?
not the physical as much.
Huh?
It's light. It's working with
But I
the
mean,
light
how
in
does
your
that
body.
how does it that happen? Was it because of
Okay.
the light? Does it trigger something or
Yeah. I'll explain it a little bit. Now, it's not a medical device. None of this is medical advice.
no?
And this is my understanding of how it works. So if someone wants to challenge me scientifically, that's not important to me. It's made by two doctors in Austria, and you could take your questions to them.
Right on.
But the person it lies under the light, and it's about 18 inches to 2 feet above your face. And it is, so there's a halogen in the middle,
Hmm.
and then there are 8 LED lights around the halogen. And so the halogen gets brighter and dimmer. The LEDs get brighter and dimmer, and then they flicker at various frequencies. And there are these sessions, about 150 program sessions, and you can make your own session, where they kind of take you on this journey. So sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower. But what
Oh,
happens?
so when you say there's about 150, it's the orchestration of the light,
Yeah,
or the way it plays
they
out.
put together programs
No
that you can take
music,
people in.
just the lighting, just no
It's just
music
the
or
light. No
wow.
drugs, no, yeah. And so the eyes are closed. The light penetrates the eyelids, and
Mhm.
it is believed that it travels through the optic nerve and into the pineal gland and bounces around on the pineal gland,
Pretty cool doctors.
agitating
Some
those
pretty cool
little crystals.
doctors, coming up with something like that. They're not just doctors, I don't think.
Well, one's a neurologist, and the
Very
other
cool.
one is a clinical
Well,
psychologist.
they're obviously clued in a little bit. Either
Yeah,
that, or
yeah,
they
for
might have
sure.
dabbled in some other things to get them there. I don't know, but that's pretty ingenious, really,
Yeah,
when you think
yeah, it
about it.
really is. It's an amazing experience. So it's a lot of fun too. Some
Hmm.
people use it as just a party tool. I think it's much more sacred than that. It's kind of the difference between doing a shamanic journey with a medicine
Yeah,
versus taking a psychedelic and going to a rave, or there are different ways to use it. Some people
yeah.
go to festivals, and that's fine.
I
But
don't know. When I used to go to raves, I thought it was pretty sacred.
well,
But that's just because I like to dance, and to me, that's like a
yeah,
meditation.
yeah.
Uh, so wow, that's pretty cool. And how about this? You mentioned that you had a QHHT session.
Mhm.
Um, we've had a couple of people on here, several that do it, and I've always it's intriguing. Yesterday, there's no coincidences. A friend of mine sent me a video, and I never really watch anything because I don't have time, and I certainly don't normally look at stuff that people send me because it just takes too long.
Mhm.
And this thing was like I want to say it was like an hour and 45 minutes, and I started to watch it, and I'm going to finish it. And what it was a audio recording of a QHHT session that was specifically, because it's a double question. It was specifically talking about pre-birth, you know,
Mhm.
prior to the earth incarnation. This lady was talking about how everything came about. You talked about a choice a minute ago. So the way everything was laid out to her, and the path that she went down to make the choice, and how everything was presented to her about coming to earth. And it was quite fascinating. I listened to about 10 minutes of it. Now, when you had this QHHT, one of the things that you did, I guess that was one of your objectives, was to delve into the insectoid connection.
Mm-hmm.
So how did that go for you? Do you remember it very well? Were you in a hypnotic? You do?
Yeah.
And how did that go for you, like with the insectoid? Did you call him up like you would any energy, call it before you, and he just came?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I've actually had 6 QHHT sessions myself. My most recent one was by far the most fabulous for what I revealed. And I'm also a practitioner of introspective hypnosis, which is a little different, but along the same line. I absolutely love hypnosis because you can really get in. It's like I feel like I'm a reporter when I get into those trance states. And I'm viewing what's happening. You can also experience it from being in the experience, but it's nice. You can also come out of the experience and just view it and sort of ask questions. What's going on here? What's going on here? So when I asked the insectoid, at first I showed up and I saw him, and his appearance was upsetting to me. And
in the QHHT.
In the QHHT session, you're very much there. I mean, it feels like you're right there, so I saw him and I'm like, well, who are you? What are you doing here? And he told me basically he was just the administrator of this technology that was an empowerment technology that was connecting me to my Council of Light, and that I could send and receive information from them, and they could do so from me, and that I had agreed to this before I came into a body, and I knew this was going to be happening, so there's nothing to worry about, and just let me get on with my business, more or less. So he was like kind of like a worker bee in a way.
Okay, so he just came in, gave you the report, boom, I'm done.
Yeah.
So for someone who hasn't done it, I haven't done it. If I want to do the same thing, if that happened to me, let's just say, and I got to the point and said, you know what, I'm going to pull up the insectoid and I'm going to have a discussion with him. So, and I can do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I'm pretty confident that and I'm not knocking QHT, I'm not knocking anything. I'm just trying to figure stuff out. So I'm 100% that whatever information I need to get, I will get. And with anything, right? Yeah. So or is there any other way that it differs from, is there something that I'm missing with it? I mean, like, you go into a hypnotic state, right? Mm-hmm. They put you in a hypnotic state, mm-hmm. and then you're in a situation where you're going to remember everything, evidently, right?
Not necessarily. So okay. They have an intake session, and you spend anywhere from, I think it could be up to an hour, sometimes mm-hmm. longer, depending on the person. So you work with them, you tell the practitioner, this is what I want to know. This is what I want to work on. I had this experience when I was a child, and I keep getting flashes of it. I'm not sure what happened, but I want to go back and see what happened there. And then, I've been visited by these other beings, and I keep remembering Egypt, and I know I have this serious connection, and mm-hmm. and this and that. You can just kind of tell them, so the last one that I did was with Alba Weinman. She's wonderful, and she records them and puts them on the online. So mine's on there. Right. As a Syrian ambassador in that one. But my mission in that one was, I had a reluctance in me to be in my power, to be a leader, to be in my power in front of people, even though I was doing it, and I still had a reluctance in me. And I wanted to get to the bottom of it because it felt bigger than this human mind. It felt bigger than this incarnational experience as, who I am here. It felt like something else. And I couldn't quite get it on my own. So we spent the entire session, her taking me into places where I might have abused my power, or where I got out of alignment with my power. And it was really, really helpful for me. I got to visit myself all over the universe in situations where I had upsets being in power. And so there was my reluctance. And since then, I've been able to integrate that, and I'm much more willing to be a powerful leader now.
Right. And so yeah, so this still goes, okay, so like that, what you just described, I'm very familiar with, right?
Mhm.
I mean, I'm married to a practitioner. She has a certain modalities that she uses, many of them, big bag of tools, big bag of tricks. But I guess I'm still intrigued and curious about this QHHT. And now there's another one too, right? The BQHHT or something like that.
Well, yeah. So Dolores Cannon she's the one that created
Yeah.
quantum healing hypnosis technique. That's QHHT. And so after Dolores Cannon passed, some of her practitioners shifted and changed the way they do it. You know, when she was alive, they adhered to her rules and her ways of doing things. And then after she passed, they you know, some of them branched out and did other things. So they're calling it BQH. Beyond Quantum Healing, that's Candace
Yeah, beyond, yeah.
Goldman.
Maybe to differentiate it proprietarily, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah. I think, did you interview Candace Craw Goldman? She's the BQH practitioner.
Candace who?
Candace Craw Goldman.
I don't think so.
Okay, maybe you
I don't have a good memory, but it's not that
That's
bad.
okay. That's okay.
No, but it's intriguing. It really is intriguing. I'm going to put the word out right now. Okay. For all those who are listening on the live and the replay, I would like for somebody to do a QHHT live with me, and I'll be the client, and let's just see what happens. You know,
Awesome.
The whole thing, intake, the whole thing, just so people can kind of get an idea of what it is. I don't know. I'm sure that there's some out there that do it. You know, like you said, this lady, she posts her sessions, and I've seen other people do the same thing. But I think it's worth it. I think somebody step up, contact me, Morgan, or whatever, and that's QHHT or BQHT or whatever.
I could make some recommendations too. There's some wonderful people doing it. Suzanne Spooner is one. She's amazing. Yeah, there are lots of great practitioners.
I'll get, I'll reach out to you, and I'll get some names, and that'd be good anyway. You know, we can, that's part of the reason we do what we do, right?
Yeah, it's very powerful. You have to be willing to be the reporter. So what I find is, even though you're under hypnosis, it's kind of like a deep meditation where your conscious mind might still be chattering at you like, well, that doesn't make sense. What, you're not even human. That can't be possible. You can't
which is similar. I mean, that's the same, you know, we
just
connect.
have to be like, that's okay. I'm not listening to that voice. I'm going to report the experience that I'm having right now. And the more you say about it, the more it opens up, and the more you see and experience. You have to be willing to just kind of go with what you're experiencing, regardless of how crazy it is.
Just like a meditation or just a communion. I mean, we do it every night. I talk about it all the time, but we put our hands together, and that same thing happens, right? It happens when I meditate. It happens. The only time it doesn't happen is if it doesn't happen a lot when I'm walking. I walked a lot, you know, I guess forming my own method of meditation. I don't do it as much as I used to, or when I danced, none of that comes in. Right. But so, and the reason I'm going here is because I think of hypnosis, and I've had people said they hypnotized me. I've never been hypnotized. I know that I haven't. Right. Not technically, not the way I understand it, but to me, if you're hypnotized, how do you remember anything? You know, so I guess it's set up in the intake of what's going to happen or how it's going to be structured.
Yeah, you might have a slight misconception of what it is to be hypnotized. In my experiences, I naturally recall most of what comes through, or at least a good amount of it, and they record it for you. If your practitioner doesn't record it, you can ask them to. I think that's important to listen back, because you're going to forget things. So you know, there's that conscious part of the mind that's still hanging around, you know, just like in channeling or whatever. You just have to choose not to pay attention to that part and to pay attention to, and then you have a guide, which is lovely. You know, when you're doing your own meditation or journey, you don't have a guide other than the guides that are coming to you, but you have an actual physical person there standing for you, guiding you into those areas that that you've asked to go.
Yeah.
Maybe you need some help.
Yeah, far out. And I have a lot of respect for Dolores Cannon. Maybe that's what I'll do. I'll just tap in have a discussion with her and see
Yeah.
and get my questions answered. But the last question on this, because I don't want to take up the whole show with it, but thank you for explaining all this to me. Could you do one like you're there and I'm here, or does it have to be
Yes.
okay? You
Yeah.
could.
Now, not all practitioners do that.
Mhm.
Dolores didn't, she wasn't a supporter of that
Mm.
methodology, but there are certainly practitioners that do distance sessions. And I haven't personally had one, but I know people that have said they're very helpful and effective.
Right on.
So, yeah.
Janine suggested Allison Coe. You know, she actually agreed to come on to the show, and she hasn't done it. So
Oh, well, there you
I have
go.
her phone number. So maybe I'll send her a text. I think I did a couple of, but anybody knows her? Just can somebody remind her, please? If anybody knows her, or let me know they know her, that would be nice. That'd be cool. I only met her once. Wow, this is cool. So what's happening? What's happening? Like, what the hell's going on now? Like, this year has been, we all know, I don't have to explain it. June was off the hook totally. Like, June was like bigger than the previous 5 months times 10, right? And now we're 10 days into July. Franco de Nicola says we're in a 2.5 month period, give or take, of integration. It feels like integration. It feels like some really raw stuff is coming up, like betrayal. Um, you know, things are going into further alignment. How deep can we go? I mean, it's something's telling me that since June 1st, we have hit a new dimension, new timeline, new earth. I don't know, but something has changed drastically. How do you feel about that?
Yeah,
Are
yeah.
you feeling that? I don't want to ask a leading question, but I mean,
Fun.
what's your take on what's going on?
My take on it is so for me, let me just back up a second. The
Mhm.
ascension process, I like to call it the inscension because
Mhm.
we're really traveling within.
Mhm.
So this time, and why we all say, this is the time we've been waiting for, even though it's really chaotic and crazy and difficult on so many levels. What this time is for me, my perspective, which is just mine, whatever, right or wrong, it's just my perspective, is that this is the time where all of our stuff confronts us,
Yeah.
our duality, the duality that we're living in, and we make that choice and claim our reality and
Yeah.
claim where are we going to be in this process. Are we going to be in the chaos? Are we going to be somebody who, for me, I feel very, very aligned in my light. And most of the time, I am going to share something that happened recently that really rocked me. But this is a time to get really clear about what you stand for, who you are, and your column of light, and to be sovereign in that so that you know your way back if you do get thrown off or thrown into the chaos. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's not about judging it, but the time is now. I was just at a little gathering on the 4th of July, and a woman asked me, so what's the timeline? And I'm like, when is the ascension happening? And I'm like,
When's the solar flash?
Right
When's the
now.
universe going to wink at us? Like
Right.
everybody was forecasting that last year, and I look at them this year, and the what do you want to call it? The little brat inside me wants to send them a note. Go, so what happened with these predictions?
Yeah, well, it's now, and it's your perspective. It's always, you can have the experience of ascension right now and in every moment. And like a lot of us, I think, are bridging worlds back and forth. We're in and we're out, and we're all over because the dimensions are layered, for one thing. So you and I can be right next to each other and having very different experiences. And it's always a personal choice. So, so her question back to me was, well, what do you mean? Like, if I actually believed that, I could ascend right now, I would. I'm like, absolutely, because ascension isn't going anywhere. It's just raising your frequency right where you are in this moment through the heart, through opening your heart. And if you believe, whatever you believe is possible is going to reflect back to you. And I feel like it's just happening faster and faster and faster. So, can I share with you a crazy thing that just happened to me?
Absolutely.
So I just because, I feel like I'm so solid in my light. I teach people to be solid in their
You're
light.
right.
That's who I am. That's what I do. I'm untouchable. I've said it many
Right.
times.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I got a little kick in the butt.
yeah,
It happened. So what
yeah.
happened was I was moving. I just moved house. I'm in a divorce. It's a year and a half I've been separated where we were going to sell the house and then, go through with the divorce. So very amicable, but I'm a Cancer. Home and family is what it's all about for me. My kids are not with me right now. One's with his grandparents in Iowa and the other one's in Tampa. And so I'm moving house, our family house. I'm, extracting myself. My ex has been moved out for almost a year, but this is just my process. And so my foundation was feeling really wonky, moving into a new place by myself for the first time in my adult life, really. And then let's see what happened next. I oh my I had a conversation for someone that's going to be on my with someone who's going to be on my summit. It was a really deep, intense conversation, and this is actually a DNA architect I talked to. Not that person's fault at all, but I picked up some dark energy in that conversation.
Mm.
I didn't realize it at the time. Later that day, I got my cats neutered and picked them up from the vet. And so I was tuning in with them empathically, feeling, like they were panting, coming off the
Mm.
anesthesia and all of this. And with everything that had happened, and I was moving in 2 days, the final move. So my foundation got rocked and I went into vertigo, and I had an 18-hour
Wow.
vertigo experience, and not just a little like
18 what?
18 hours of
Wow.
vertigo, spinning like, drunk spins, except there was no alcohol involved.
And this was from a conversation.
Well,
Well,
it was
probably
many things.
yeah,
So
yeah,
my
a combination.
foundation
Yeah, okay.
was unstable.
Yeah.
And this is really my point. What I see now is that my foundation was unstable. I
Yeah.
had a really intense conversation. I tuned in empathically with my cat's anesthetic, I picked that up. I picked up, multiple things happened to lead to this, but it spiraled me
Yeah.
into a spinning as an experience. I was like Alice in Wonderland, falling and
Wow.
falling and falling and falling. And I'm a shaman. I mean, I have tools.
That's a
I know
but
what to do.
that's a powerful story.
It was
Uh
intense.
because yeah, if you look at your situation, because you used a minute ago, you said I picked up some dark energy
Yeah.
in this conversation. Now I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
But like, so you were moving unstable, you
Mm-hmm.
know, plus there's good stress and bad stress, right? We think stress is, when you move, that's stress. I mean,
Yeah.
having to move into a place. So then you have your cats, that's unstable, right? You have
Mm-hmm.
this conversation, something was unstable in that conversation or something, and maybe you were already off, but it's so interesting. And then it manifests in you.
Yeah.
So
Physically.
did you tap in to the vertigo or whatever to figure out, hey, I just got it
Yeah.
imbalanced, I'm knocked off my square?
Well, I was a mess. So it was over 18 hours, started at 6 p.m. And, so all night I was kind of struggling off and on with it. I did get moments of sleep, and then but my mind, and I'm so good at working with my mind and my mind started going to, what if you don't come out of this? What if this is forever? What if
Yeah,
it, I'm like, oh my
yeah.
God. So I'm like, nope, I'm not going there. One other thing, this is a key piece. I think that I had been packing and stuff, and I was listening to YouTube because, it's a time where I can do something. So there are these round tables of, like, these wonderful spiritual women have been having these round table discussions. And there was a lot of talk about, the conspiracy,
I know which one you're talking about. We're
yeah,
friends
there's a
now.
lot of that. And this was
Yeah.
the night before I was listening to this. And I find it interesting, honestly. I find
Yeah.
it
Well, who
interesting, but
well
I
who
don't,
wouldn't? Yeah, I mean, it is interesting.
but it kind of opened that rift, So it was
Yes.
like this domino
Great.
effect. And I have to be so careful about what I allow in here,
Yeah.
particularly when my foundation is rocked. So
Yeah.
I have an Oriental medicine practitioner, and I called her, and she's wonderful. And she cleared it and got me out of it and gave me a nutrition program for hydration. And interestingly, you know, it's the inner ear, the crystals in the inner ear get mislodged. And so I did some maneuvers to help me get those back in place. I got stabilized, and then I just started fortifying my foundation. Like, okay, we're not doing that. But this interesting thing happened. So I hadn't had it in like 3 or 4 days, no experience of vertigo, was feeling pretty good, pretty solid. And I got online and I started reading something that maybe somebody sent me a video. I don't know. I started looking at it, and I started to have, I had a petty thought. Honestly, I had a negative thought about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, I started to feel the vertigo again. I'm like, I have to be that careful. I have to be that careful with my mind and what I look at and what I entertain to stay centered.
And this is what you were talking about. When I said, what do you think's going on? And you said, I think everything's coming up. And I've been talking about this since we got back up and running for the last couple of weeks. I know exactly who you're talking about. They're friends of mine. They've been on this show. I think it's very necessary and all that. And but something's happening with the whole disclosure and conspiracy thing. And these are words that shouldn't apply, you know, but I think at one point there was we'll just call it, you know, there was a field of energy that contained, you know, not 100%, but there was a lot of overlap of disclosure, light worker, conspiracy, right? Because we know that disclosure issues and topics and such and conspiracy woke a lot of people up or accelerated their journey down the different rabbit holes, right? Which eventually led to self, and you know, here we are. But to your point, I think this is a big one. I think it's huge. At some point, you got to stop beating the dead horse. It doesn't matter what the story is. What matters is where we're at and where we're going, who we are, what we're a part of. And I'm not making light of anyone or throwing rocks at anyone. I'm just saying for my own self, like, I don't need to know all that stuff anymore. And I'm with you because I just had my own experience, which I've talked about, and I won't talk about again on the show because I've already talked about it 2 or 3 times. And I learned the same thing. I was watching a particular type of video that I had watched before that used to give me a charge. I worked on that. I alleviated that, but I found myself 4 weeks ago, I start watching these videos again, and the energy presented itself to me in no uncertain terms in a really nice little exchange. And I came away with the same thing. I came away knowing that I have no business watching those videos, not because it'll give me a charge and not because it doesn't exist, but because I'm controlling my end of the collective hologram. And by watching that stuff, I'm basically programming myself, and I'm casting this overlay onto, you know, this illusionary, delusional overlay onto our collective experience. So I think what you said earlier and the way you tied it with that story is a gift, because the truth is, your experience with the vertigo, I could see that happening with much more frequency to all of us. I think it's going to get that loud, you know. You know, it used to be we'd get hit with the cosmic 2x4 in the head or get a swift kick in the butt, you know, and we've all been there, but it's getting louder. And louder doesn't just mean your higher self starts screaming. Louder means that your higher self starts to embarrass you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, it's scary. I mean, that was scary for me. And I've been told before by my guidance, like when I'm really working on opening up to a new body of work and download, my guidance would be like, no TV, no movies, no YouTube, unless it's, you know, really something that I know is good. But because these frequencies are carried in these videos, and here's the thing, what we focus on, we get more of. So,
Exactly.
you know, as we are inside, it's going to reflect outside. So
Yeah.
don't you want to nurture the good stuff? And yes, those things are going on, but that I'm not going to judge. I mean, some people, that's their business
As
to
within,
do
without.
that, and that's okay.
Right.
No judgment. But I don't want that. Like, I don't like that world. It doesn't feel good to me. It feels yucky.
Yeah. That's what that's what I always say. I think we're like, I always use the analogy. We're like a little kid. We're like a 3-year-old, a 3-year-old, 4-year-old, and we walk into this huge playroom, with all these different toys, and some things we like and some things we don't, and that's okay.
Yeah.
It's not like we're putting it in the corner and sweeping it under the rug, or the crazy ant in the attic or the big elephant in the room, right? It's not like that. It's just, where do you come from? Which goes back to what you were talking about at the top of the show, what you're going to be doing with this event that you have coming up, galactic origins. Like, what is that? If we're mutts here, we've got to be mutts, universally speaking. And so, like the example I gave you about the insectoid with my grandmother. Well, why did she come that way? She's come other ways before. So, what is that?
Yeah, well, we are so multidimensional. I mean, I've experienced myself as a cat, a feline being, a whale, a dolphin, a seahorse, a many different races, many
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
beings, and this is just this costume, that we're wearing this time because we're having a human experience, but
Yeah.
we're multidimensional. Not only have we had those experiences, we're simultaneously having them right now.
Yeah.
So we can tap into them and experience them. I just had, and this is interesting. I looked at a video of you just before I got on. I didn't get to watch it all, but I just saw you hold up, I think you held up an Anubis. Do you have an Anubis?
Yes, I have them right here. And I'm not one of those. I'm not one of those that attaches to anything.
Yes.
But this is very important.
I have a video on my YouTube channel that I did about a month ago about being visited by Anubis. And the Anubis, apparently, they're a whole race of beings that are helping out with the ascension right now.
Yeah.
And you know how Anubis has the scale, where when you leave this body and you go into the spirit world, on one side of the scale is your heart, and the other side is a feather. And the idea is, if your heart is lighter than a feather, you can cross into the other realm, or heaven. And so what he told me, or the Anubis beings told me, that what that means, it's about ascension. It's about the ascended heart. It's not about the physical heart, but the ascended heart is a light heart. And what have you held on to? So, and it's not even about dying. It's about right now in this moment. You can ascend if your heart's lighter than a feather. And the way that your heart is lighter than a feather is if you don't hang on to resentments, don't marinate yourself in negativity and chaos and upsetting things, see each person as another aspect of yourself, love each other, be generous, be loving, be of service to the whole, and know that we are all the same being having its experiences in different bodies. So that's how you become as light as a feather. And when you get it, you naturally ascend. Your heart is light. And
plus it's the true virus. It's the true contagion, because no matter what we say, no matter what we say, we're trying to convince somebody or convince ourselves, or however you want to put it, it's our energy. Our energy is it doesn't sit still. I mean, we're merging, we're connecting, we're mixing, fusing. And so that's one thing about what we're all doing. I mean, that's so incredible to me, is that we're becoming conscious. And so now we're going to utilize everything that we've learned and that we've downloaded and all that stuff. And we're going to create something that we thought was, a reward for us when we were good and said our prayers and went to confession, but I mean, this is how it happens, which is so cool. I mean, it's like we're God's in the flesh, I mean, that's, I don't know how she'd put it. So we're multidimensional, like you said. We're having a human experience, like you said. But why are we 99% of the time conscious with, let's just say theoretically, 1% of our multidimensionality in our conscious state? The human, this mission, this whatever you want to call it, must be very, very opportunistic, important, potential. I mean, this has got to be one of the best games we ever came up with.
Exactly.
It has to be.
Exactly, because I mean, it's the infinite layers of the onion. The ascension is infinite. It's never ending, and you peel a layer back, and you're like, oh, there's more. And then you peel, and what happens in the beginning is people they have their awakening experience, and they're like, I've arrived. And but yet, where have you arrived? You've arrived at the beginning of your process.
Yeah.
and then you peel it back in another one, and it's really infinite. And that's why I feel like it's all now. No matter who has a timeline out there, that's their timeline that they're receiving. But you can have enlightenment right now in this moment.
Absolutely.
In every moment.
That's right.
Based on
that's right.
Your frequency.
And then you wake up tomorrow, and they used to tell me when I was on the street, they would say, ascension. I don't think they were using that word, but like ascension's on a scale of 1 to 10. You hit a 10 today. Now you go to sleep and you wake up and there's a new scale of 1 to 10, and the 10 is a 1. So, so it just keeps going, right?
Yeah.
So
except
it's
every moment.
Yeah, I think that's there's so much that's happening. I think this is just my opinion. I mean, since June 1, that the type of information and coding and knowing, and it's so different, even though it's familiar to us, but it's so different from where we've been. You can't even explain it. This lady wrote me the other day, and she's like, have you written a book? And I'm like, no, I've always felt like I was supposed to, like going back 9 years ago. And, but every time I'd start, it's like, by the time you finish chapter 1, it's already old information, right? I mean, it's just moving so fast. So I'm excited about the rest of the year. What do you think the rest of the year is going to look like? Do you have any idea?
I think people's experiences will be varied. I mean, I do think there's more chaos to be worked out of the global whole, the community, and that will continue in, various forms. I don't necessarily think that the worst of that is over, but what I can say is you get to choose your experience within the process. So manage your mind and be what you choose to be. This is an opportunity to take on the role of who you want to be, rather than waiting for the outside world to tell you, hey, it's okay to be this or that, or have a multidimensional experience, or fall in love, or whatever it is. Choose it now and have that experience. This is an opportune time for that. And I do feel like manifestation is faster. I mean, all of my friends are calling like, oh, I just thought this thing and it just showed up immediately. And I'm like, you're
right on.
You're in it. You're manifesting. It's amazing.
When it's working both ways. So, like with the vertigo thing.
And
mine was with, I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but mine was with police brutality, because I've had my experiences in the past. And so I was watching them, and we were just pulling out of our house. And evidently the house had been vacant a long time. We had just moved in, and so people had been coming back here and I guess doing things they shouldn't do or whatever. That's what he said. So the guy pulls up, and he goes, he just like walked right up to the car. We're pulling out of the driveway. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, he said, why are you pulling out of this driveway? I said, because I live here. He said, give me your ID. I said, no. And then it all hit me, and I was like, oh, wait a minute, I better be real careful. I'm not afraid of this guy. I'm not going to give up my sovereignty. But it wasn't the event. It was the instant manifestation. That's what I was saying. There's another side to it. So that's part of being conscious, I think, is we're not used to the positive, because we were told, you were told, don't tell adults that you're getting visitations. You know, we were told that these things are fantasies, that we're not magic, that you know, I mean, think about it. Think about all that we've overcome. And so yeah, more people are experiencing this positive instant manifestation. And man, it's like a fire hose now. Like, it's not going to be stopped.
Yeah.
It's just, and I love what you said too about the whole thing with the, you know, watching the round table and how the vertigo came on and everything. Morgan has a saying. She says, if you look for it, you'll find it.
Yes.
So if you find yourself in here, you know, yeah, I mean, we're sovereign.
I mean, you get to choose what you experience here. And if you're experiencing it, it's in you, you know, so there's there's where to look, because you can only experience what's inside of you.
That's right.
If you're having a lot of negative experiences, then there's something in you generating that, so that you can look within and find that misalignment and correct it. Take responsibility for everything that happens, then go to work on those places. And self-work is so important in all of this.
Absolutely.
And then your world changes from the inside out, but it looks as if it's changing from the outside in. Suddenly people are nicer. Suddenly people are, you know, you clear that
opportunities,
police brutality. Suddenly police are your best friends, you know?
I've been meeting with them in my head. And I did work it out with them, you know.
Good.
Well, that's exactly how he said it to me. And I wouldn't change anything, but like, you know, like, give me your license. I'm like, no, I didn't do anything. And of course, Morgan's like, here, I'll give you mine. So and so then I was like, then he started explaining everything. And I'm like, okay with that. But I still would rather have, you know, hey, here's my garage door opener. Here's my key to the front door. It was meant for me. I set it up, and I'm like you now, like, that was a big wake up call. Like, I don't need to go through the grind. Okay. To get it now. Like, you had vertigo, you know what I mean? I don't need to go another step. I get it. Now I've got to reinforce it. You've got to reinforce it. And this is the thing, you know, and I have a lot of people, they message, you know, and request to come on and just different stuff. And it's very difficult for me. I find it very challenging because of what's happened to us. I'm not going to say me, but I mean, this whole transformation, like 3D stuff. I mean, I used to do like 14 things at one time and do it to the 100th percentile. And now it's very difficult. And so people, sometimes they get upset, you know, and I can't do it. Right. But my point is that it's like, you know, this is a 24/7, 365 deal.
Yeah. I
need my wherewithal to the best of my ability. Even with Morgan, you know, I mean, if something's coming on, it was a couple of months ago, and I was like, just being by myself, which we do that in this relationship. It's not a big deal, but it was happening so much. She was like, are you trying to avoid me? I'm like, no, I'm not. But I just doing what I know I got to do, which is like, it's a full-time thing. I don't know how else to put it. So which really, really supports not, you know, doing that and watching videos I shouldn't watch and you know what I mean? Yeah. So I think we're getting there. I really do. I think we really are. I think we're getting there. And maybe that's the difference between the first half of the year and the second half, or is that we're starting to see that evidence. We're starting to see the fairy tales and the fantastical stuff come true. The coincidences, synchronicities, you know, the validations, and
becoming multidimensional.
Yeah. Consciously multidimensional. Yeah, I'm ready, man. I'm ready. You know, I think I'm going to get a cape, you know, like Superman, but I'm going to get a blue one.
There you go.
I want to be I want to
And
be.
you know, it's not that you're getting there,
Yeah,
just own it. I am there, you
that's
know,
right.
I'm there, that's who I am, and I'm going to experience more of that, and you will, you know, it's the alignment with the like you said, frequency. We're all frequency. You experience the frequency that you're putting out. So if you can truly believe that, you truly believe that you're supernatural and you're
Yeah,
having mystical
absolutely.
experiences, and you know, and that you're going to see a unicorn, if you really believe it and you have no resistance, then you will. Because you have to, because that's
That's
the
right.
way the universal law works.
That's right. And you know, of all the things that I look back on, you know, because I had so much. We come from an environment where everything gets complicated anyway. That's the way it was designed. We designed it. They didn't do it, by the way, everybody. They didn't do it. There is no they. Okay, it's us. We've all agreed to this. It isn't a majority decision. It was a unanimous decision. Everything that's happened. Sorry to get on my soapbox, but you know, the one thing that I know that everyone I've ever talked to, and I know in my own life, even as a little boy, when you ask, you get it. When
Mm-hmm.
you ask and your emotions are, you know, aligned, like balanced, you're not like angry and doing something that, you know, you cool off and you say, oh, I shouldn't have done that. Or, but whenever you're right mind, you can be sad, you can be happy, you can be any type of emotion if it's real and raw and truthful. And that I think is part of a big part of what the human experience is giving to the expansion of the universe, and that is to inject emotion into manifestation, because there's something about the human heart that is freaking mind blowing. It
Mm-hmm.
is, whether it's the ego side of it or the soul side of it. You know, 1/3 of crimes are crimes of passion. You know, what does that tell you? I
Oh
mean, how
yeah.
much do you love who you're with? How much do you love what you're doing? And I think that's the environment that we're building.
Yeah.
It's
It's
the
all
kids.
about the heart. It
Yeah.
really is all about opening the heart more and becoming vulnerable and being willing to surrender to that and
Yeah.
release the resistance to feeling more. We have had a whole history of shutting down our feelings.
Yeah.
If we don't want to feel something, we just block it out. But that's part of what's going on now in the opening of the
Yeah.
collective heart, opening our individual hearts. We have to feel more, and it can
Hmm.
be
This
intense.
is why the women have led the way, because they never got, whatever, by design, they never got too far away from the heart. This is so funny. I started laughing. I wasn't laughing at you, but last night we had a powerful day yesterday. I could feel something coming in. So last night when we went to bed and put our hands together, some, I don't know what happened. I mean, I was like, I just was in a sacred, intimate mode. But it wasn't, you know, it wasn't old stuff. You know, this is the new intimacy, whatever you want to call it. But she energetically turned everything. Like, I went from the initiator to total surrender. And I'm not talking about any acts or anything like that. I'm talking about an energetic release. And I believe, and the reason I laugh is because I said to her, because we were driving down the road a while ago, she goes, you told me you were scared last night. But and I said, I can't answer that right now, but I can now after talking to you, you know, having this conversation. I went to a place where I let all my inhibitions of my emotions go away.
Mm.
And I don't think I've ever been there before. In fact, I know I haven't. And I'm like, because she said, well, what were you scared of? I'm like, I can't tell you. I don't know. I know it, but I don't know. It's like what I was saying earlier, all this stuff coming in, you can't even explain it. But I think that's what it is. And I think that's a big deal for men,
Oh yeah,
you
that's
know?
huge. That's huge too. I mean, we've been told it's not safe to be emotional, to feel too much, to, you know, to be vulnerable. and women as well as men, but of course women just seem to have more connection to emotion, and men have been like more removed from it societally, but we're all opening that up. And I think it's so powerful to have, you know, men leading the way in that for other men. Like, it is safe now, you know, you can be a real man, whatever
Yeah.
that means,
Yeah.
you know, and have
Yeah.
emotion, you
I
know,
got,
real men.
I got slammed two nights ago. Yeah. 2 nights ago, I got slammed. I mean, I got presented with something, and I haven't been, I don't think I've cried in a long time. I mean, probably a few months, you know, and, I got slammed, and I'm in the garage until 5:30 in the morning, you know, talking to the fairies and the nature beings and trying to figure out what the hell's going on and why are you putting this in front of me. And, so then I did a show. I didn't want to get up and do the show. I did it with, Kalina Malnar and, William Melchizedek. And, and I did not want to get up and do the show, but I know that I'm supposed to. And I got up on there and I just started bawling, like right there, you know. But I was fine with it. I never considered once, oh my God, I'm embarrassed. No, I didn't. I mean, and I'm not saying that for myself. I'm saying that I believe as the individual goes, so goes the collective. So that energy, or whatever you want to call it, or that threshold's been crossed. And I agree with you. I think one of the things that's happened this year, particularly in the last few weeks, is that the real divine masculine energy has become full blown available as a result of the feminine having, you know, gotten to the higher ground and held a space until we caught up, you know.
Emotion is power, and emotion is creative energy. Like, as you're speaking, I'm looking at that background behind you, and I'm just, that's like what it is. The stuff, emotion is the stuff that we create with. You take emotion and put it with your heart energy and your visualization, and you can project, you can create anything you want if you have a grasp on that, you know. Like, emotional energy is power. And I think that, you know, like, I'm just kind of getting the understanding as you're speaking, the reason that we've been, you know, like, sort of dissected from our emotional energy, or like, you'll hear, I've heard so many guys say no drama. Like, I want to experience a woman with all her drama, which really means emotion, right? We've been separated from that because that's our creative power. And
that's a great
there's
point.
this idea that we aren't powerful. So we have to learn to use our emotional energy to create with, and not be afraid of it. So I feel like you just opened up a huge power center for yourself.
Well, you know, and I love that you said that about the emotions in women and what men say. Because I've been in this dance with Morgan for almost 5 years, and I know that we're paralleling or mirroring what's happening, you know. And so you look for the nuances and you look for the meanings and the connections and everything. But one of the things I noticed, well, so I was going down the road with it. I was like, when is this Mars Venus thing gonna go away? When are the stereotypical or the characteristics of a typical feminine and masculine, you know, like he's Jackie Gleason, he's Fred Flintstone, you know, she's crazy, he's stupid, right? I mean, whatever, you know, just like women do this and men do that. When is that going to go away? Now, I'm talking to myself as this is all happening. And by the way, that's all been cleared over here. Thank you. But one of the ways that I feel that I contributed to that mutual expansion or alignment was I started to look at the female emotions in a different way. I started to understand that no matter what she does, because one thing's not going to change, that is the mother energy. That is the energy you find in the abyss, in the womb. And you can't understand it. It's a mystery. It's an enigma. So men would say, she's crazy. You know, I don't know why you're doing that. It doesn't make sense. It's not rational. It's not. That's creation. That's the womb. So I started to understand, because I was told, hold space, hold space. You're going to need to hold space. This went on when I was in Florida for like 2 months before we left. And I knew there was more meaning to it than just holding space for Morgan. But that was part of it. And so it was a training session, you know, and what I found was she might have a moment, you know, and I realized I don't need to know why. I don't need to understand it. I don't need to know how she's built. I just can stand here and observe and hold the space for my heart. And it sounds, cliche or, you know, warm and fuzzy and all that, but it's not. This was a real wisdom. You know, it was a real moment of wisdom, because I had the knowledge. Now I'm taking this action, and the action was just as unknowable as the womb, because I didn't know if it was going to work. It sounded hokey, go hold space, you know, but watching the feminine energy flow and just going, wow, I can't do that. I've never experienced that. It's magnificent. It's fantastic. So it was a big deal. And again, I think that energy or that perspective has to be available, or because I'm not the only one.
Oh yeah.
So I think it's quite fascinating to me what happened. Great conversation. I would love to keep talking, but I've got to run up to the store. And I have another show in 36 minutes. You're a beautiful, beloved sister. Thank you so much for your raw, real, authentic conversation. And I'd love to collaborate with you down the road. And I'm going to answer your email that you sent me. And I'd love to participate if there's room.
Yes.
I'm available. This is what it's all about. So,
well, thank you so much, Todd. I really appreciate you and your show and having me on. And I look forward to having you on Alchemy of Ascension.
Right on. And can you, a couple of people have asked, and by the way, whoever was in the YouTube that said Shane from Unbiased and on the fence does BQHT, that's a great idea. I'll call him today. Thank you for that. But what I was going to say is Soulology One Studios YouTube channel would be a good place to put your links, because people are asking. And also, on the Facebook pages, I would just put it on my page, because it'll more people are on that page, a lot more people than the other two.
And so you can spell my name. It's WaxelaSananda.com. A little hard to spell.
Oh, that's easy.
Yeah.
WaxelaSananda.com.
Waxela is my name.
Yeah.
So it's
beautiful. Right on. Okay. Thank you so much. All blessings to you and yours and those beautiful little Lyrians as well. Take care. Bye-bye.